Sorry I haven't got out and done a video in the last couple of nights. A combination of life popping up and doing stuff and some thunderstorms rolling through. I'm going to talk about 2000 Mules today. And you may have heard something about it. So I'll just give you a brief idea what it is and talk about the meat in there a little bit and then what you can conclude from it. So what it's about is Dinesh D'Souza is presenting evidence indicating particular events of voter fraud occurring in the last election. And so the question always remains. So you basically start hearing both sides saying, "Oh, this is, you know, incredibly, damning," and the other side saying, "Nah, it doesn't prove a thing." And of course, the reality meets somewhere in the middle. Just kind of an overview of the look of the video. I mean, as a documentary, it's very well produced. It looks nice. It's easy to follow. You don't have any points where you're just going, oh my God, you're like, come on, make this go. You're killing me type things. So, in terms of putting a documentary together, he's done a really good job on that. My only critique is it's got a bit of schmarminess to it. Like there'll be an example where like he and his wife are sitting there looking at a laptop and the phone rings and they pick it up and it's like, "Oh, Mary Sue, you found this? Oh, let us go over and look at it." Not, it's obviously, it's meant to be understood that some of the stuff is kind of reenacted, but it's also meant to be kind of folksy where people are kind of supposed to look and go, "Oh, wow, I'm kind of watching this as it happens," when, they knew they had all their stuff together before this was put together. And then they kind of made it look like you're part of the investigative trail. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not deceptive. It just makes it more entertaining. Now, for some people, that's a big turnoff. So, what is the gist of what's being presented here? So, for sure, what they have is a lot of these drop boxes during the 2020 election were required to be under constant video surveillance. That seems to be a logical thing to do. But we also see through the videos, because what they did was they were able to uh, essentially get the equivalent of a Freedom for Information request. But it's something I guess you can just directly buy from the people who do the various monitoring. And they watch the videos. And essentially you see the same people coming up over and over and over again, stuffing huge piles of envelopes into these boxes. Not only that, the same person shows up at multiple boxes, stuffing envelopes into these various boxes. Also, oddly, a lot of this occurs between midnight and 6, where no one could potentially be watching. They also did further uh, or gathered further evidence by apparently you can just buy uh, bits of meta information from the phone cell tracking system where you can actually get, and what they do, they use it to do kind of like blind studies. And what happens is they tack a unique identifier to a phone, but you don't see any of the personal information. And so what they're able to do is they were able to discover a handful of these vote gatherers and watch their patterns, basically going around the city, uh, showing up in the vicinity of the voter boxes, all in these weird time periods. Another thing that kind of popped out was apparently there was a case somewhere in the Southwest where someone got nailed for voter fraud for harvesting ballots, and they got busted on DNA evidence. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, all these people they've been tracking on video, you see on a particular date, all of them start wearing disposable gloves. And they wear them up to the box, deliver their ballots, and then throw the gloves away immediately in the nearest trash can as they walk away. So you got a lot of weird stuff going on there. Now, they make some extrapolations that, I mean, they're not outlandish, but they aren't uh, definitive. They make some guesses as to how many more of these mules, they're calling them, might be. And they're also doing some extrapolations for how many votes they actually might be dropping off or not dropping off. Um, Statistically, the numbers they're throwing out based on their original information is probably well within statistical range of likelihood based on the information they got, but it's probably at the outer ranges of it. Uh, Essentially, they need more information to back themselves up on this. So ultimately, the big question is what's going on here? What does this tell us? So one side's saying definitive, the other side says, it's nothing. Well, it's understanding the general concept of science. First, what we're talking about here is evidence. We are seeing, we can see very clearly that there are people working for these organizations, and they do a little bit of delving into the organizations, asking them how they pay people out and stuff like that. So, what can we figure out from looking at this? Well, one, yes, this does appear to be happening. Scale is a little bit hard to understand, but we can say this is definitely happening. People are harvesting votes, bringing them in. We do know there are instances where they're doing things like going through nursing homes and having people who are incompetent voting. We do know they're going through poor neighborhoods and either paying for or strong arming people to do ballots. We also know there's instances where they are picking up excess ballots and filling them out as well. Now, the two don't necessarily go together. Okay, the ballots that these people may be bringing into the boxes could be absolutely legitimate, where somebody asked them to do it. However, in some of the instances the states are talking about, you're only supposed to be carrying ballots for relatives who can't make it to the box. But nonetheless, in theory, the ballots could be legitimately filled out by people. Even basically the people who filled them out the way they wanted to be, and these guys ended up bringing them in. I mean, if you told somebody who had a hard time getting around, saying, "Hey, I'll deliver your ballot for you," I'm sure they'd take you up on it. So, what exactly are these people doing who are? Oh, and another real quick thing is kind of important. So, one of the things you see these ballot deliverers doing is when they get done putting the ballots in, they're taking a picture of the box. So what they're doing is they're creating a timestamp photo. Very clearly, the purpose of that is to let whoever they're working for know that they actually did what they're saying, what they're doing. So this strongly indicates that this is a paid operation. So in some states, this is illegal. Some states, it's not, but probably should be. So what we end up seeing is the ballots that are being, it's essentially under the guise of get out the vote. Uh, there are essentially two different ways to look at it. Uh, these organizations may be absolutely legitimately their only purpose is to get out the vote, and so they think, oh, even if we're pushing the pushing the extremes of the rules, we really think every person should get a vote, and that is a possibility. The other thing is that they're actually trying to change the outcome of the election by delivering votes that are of more of a dubious nature. Okay. All right. Based on everything else in play, and I mean, essentially what we know about various things that are going on outside this particular documentary in terms of organizations paying to get to do ballot harvesting, and the way ballot harvesting works in the states where it is legal. Uh, we know very well that this whole nursing home, poor neighborhood, immigrant neighborhood dynamic is definitely in play. So the question is it effective? I mean, are they actually changing the outcome of the vote? Again, there's two answers to this, and beyond just a yes and no. Okay, so if the organization's intent is to alter the outcome of an election with dubious votes, there's one possibility that they are doing it and they're very incompetent at it. Uh, there's always the potential that uh, the organization itself is essentially making money off of high paying donors who are either hoping to empower people by getting their votes in the box who wouldn't normally be able to, or others who are actually trying to change the outcome of the election. Now, an organization that's pulling in donations to do this may not care whether they're effective at it or not as long as the money's coming in. If they can keep showing, oh, look, this is, we can prove how many ballots we harvested, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing good work, keep the money coming in. So, from the organization's point of view, it's always a possibility that they're getting money from either or both types of sources, either people trying to get out the vote or people trying to alter the vote, and they may be ineffective at it and they don't particularly care because they're making their cut. You'll see that in a lot of so-called charitable or educational or political organizations, uh, well past the point where they have any effectiveness at all. They'll continue to operate because you'll have older donors who are rich who keep throwing money at something because they always have done it and they don't really know what's going on with it. So the ultimate, the possibility that D'Souza is definitely hinting at that very well might be reality is that there are enough of these votes coming in to actually alter the outcome of elections. So the question needs to be asked, because the news media will basically say, well, yeah, we see little minor instances of voting fraud going on here and there, but none of it will actually change the outcome of the election. Well, yeah, it's what we see versus what we can't see. So there may be much more out there that we can't see that isn't documented. So the big question comes, if these organizations, if their goal is to change the outcome of elections, it's reasonable to presume that they think they are effective at it. Otherwise, unless it's purely profit motive to keep the operation going, they wouldn't keep doing it. They do it because it works at some level. How it works, does it change elections or does it just make the money? That's the big question. So, uh, I think more than anything, what this video does, Sousa's video that is it should make people ask the question: is this bigger than what he's even found? Uh, and this requires further investigation. So the people who are adamant that, well, no, this doesn't mean anything. It's absolute noise. We don't know that. There's no way you can know it with the limited amount of information we have on this at this time, because there is the potential that it's being abused. Further investigations definitely warranted, and at the very least, I think it's reasonable to call these unmanned drop boxes into question as a legitimate way of people voting, or at least a way of getting legitimate votes into the system. The room for corruption is huge, and I would say just based on what we've seen here, uh, a state that's fighting to keep these is telling you something about their intent in terms of how they plan to count the votes, and vice versa. So I hope that gives you an overview starting point. It is worth a watch. I mean, you won't be. Like I said it's entertaining and flowing enough that you can watch it from beginning to end. And if you walk into it with an open mind, you'll probably reach a similar conclusion to me. Whereas you say, "Yeah, there's an ember there. There's something we need to look at. We need to see if there's a much bigger problem than what D'Souza has already uncovered." All right. Well, thank you for spending time with me. Hopefully, you'll be back on schedule putting videos out. See you in the near future.